It seems like more tension is brewing between Chase Briscoe and Denny Hamlin. It's been rumored for a while, apparently, that Bob Jenkins has been wanting out of NASCAR for a very, very long time, and Carson Osbar will be returning to Indy Motorsports full-time for the 2022 season. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to another video. We got quite a few NASCAR stories to discuss here today on the channel. Let's go just jump straight into those really quickly. We're going to start off with one of the paint schemes. We're going to talk about Kyle Larson's 2020 Valvoline scheme that we're going to see in Daytona next weekend. I really like this paint scheme a lot. It's not as good as the paint scheme that was at National. I thought the National paint scheme for the Valvoline scheme is the one that should have run this weekend, but I will say that this paint scheme looks absolutely incredible. I think that the 5 car has had a lot of good paint schemes. I've been a big fan of the Hendrick car scheme. I'm on the other paint schemes. This one is no exception. I think they did a really awesome job on his paint scheme. It looks really cool, and I'm looking forward to see it out on the racetrack next weekend at Daytona International Speedway. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Tire Pros. As Tire Pros is going to be sponsoring Josh Berry for 9 races for the 2022 season. The exact races have not been announced at the moment, but I want to say this. This is really awesome to see that Tire Pros is going to be sponsoring Josh Berry for 9 races. There have been talks about maybe Tire Pros stepping a little bit more to sponsor Josh Berry. They sponsored him for quite a few races here. And the fact that Josh Berry has almost a third of basically a little over a quarter of the NASCAR Xfinity Series season with Tire Pros is really good, especially for sponsorship. Remember, Josh Berry is going to be driving full-time for Junior Motorsports for the 2022 season. So now the fact that you're going to have him get sponsored at least 9 races for Tire Pros is really cool. It's really big for the sponsorship game, and it's really cool that a sponsor is willing to work with a driver who's earned the right to go full-time next year. Again, it's really cool to see that Josh Berry is going full-time next year. It's really awesome to see that Tire Pros is going to be stepping up and sponsoring him for 9 races next year. Really big news for sure. And now we're going to go and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Jake Griffin. As Jake Griffin will be driving the number 45 for Nice Motorsports this weekend here at Gateway International Speedway. Jeff Griffin has ran a couple races here, a couple of the dirt races for Raymond Brothers. Had, I believe, a 12th place finish in Knoxville. Didn't really run that great at Bristol Dirt. He really run that well there. But he'll be in the 45 track for Nice Motorsports. I believe that this will be the second best equipment he's ever had. Remember, he actually drove for Red Horse Racing in the truck race, I think, in 2016 or 2017 at Eldora. The one that Tyler Reddick ended up, I think, was it Chris Rebella or Kyle Larson one? I can't remember exactly, but he ran in for Red Horse Racing a couple years ago. And this is actually the second best truck he's ever ran. I will say that these trucks have ran pretty well. They've ran top 15 and top 20 at times. Jake Griffin, I think, is a really solid dirt driver. We'll have to see how he is on pavement. I've not seen him ever race on pavement. But I do think the goal for Jake Griffin coming into this weekend, I think, should be a top 20. I think there should be a really high expectations. And for a team like that, I know that, again, those are somewhat lower expectations at the same time as well. But you have to remember that Nice Motorsports at points has struggled this year. Despite Carson Osbar's success this year, they have struggled with points with their other drivers. But I'm wishing the best of luck to Jake Griffin. I'm really happy to see him get another opportunity. I really like what Jake Griffin's been able to do. And hopefully Jake Griffin will do really well with Nice Motorsports this weekend. And maybe going down the road, we'll see more races. We know that Lost Allen's going to run a few races for Nice Motorsports down the line in this number 45 car. It's really cool to see, though, that Jake Griffin is going to be back racing in the Truck Series once again for Nice Motorsports. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Bubba Wallace. As Bubba will also be driving the number 61 for Hattori Racing this weekend at Michigan in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. He'll be in for Austin Hill. Now, originally, Austin Hill was supposed to drive this car, but because of the fact that Austin Hill is going to be competing at Worldwide Technology Raceway Gateway, with that being a playoff race, on top of that, there is potential weather concerns this weekend in the area, which is why they made a decision to bring Bubba Wallace out here. I think that this is a really good pickup, at least for this weekend, for Bubba to run this race. Bubba Wallace actually has won here in the NASCAR Truck Series 2017, driving, I think, for RAB Racing. I don't remember exactly what the team's name was, but he drove for that team and was able to win in that number 99 truck. It was really fast at this track historically. Look at his time on the Cup Series. Was contending for the win in the first of the 2 races for the doubleheader. And we've seen this car run extremely well. The Toyota cars have ran in top 15 and top 20 in quite a few races. I believe Bubba Wallace starting a little bit in the middle of the pack, but I think with his Cup experience, I think it's going to really help him out a lot. I would not be surprised if Bubba Wallace, especially his Cup experience, I would not be surprised if he's able to go out there and finish in the top 10 or top 15. I also would not be surprised if 2311 Racing is helping him out in some aspect as well. But I think it's really awesome to see that Bubba Wallace is going to be competing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series once again. I think he's going to do really well. So I think a top 10 would be really good for Bubba Wallace. We've seen a lot of Cup drivers succeed really well in the Xfinity Series this year and throughout history. And I think Bubba Wallace has a really good shot of running really well in the event. I think he has a good shot in competing in this event for sure. And now we're going to go and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Tyler Reddick. As Tyler Reddick will be driving the 23 for Row Motorsports once again at Michigan. Tyler Reddick has made a few starts this year for Row Motorsports, ran top 10 a couple times. He's finished in the top 10, almost won at Homestead, ended up finishing second. I think, unfortunately, they'll end up getting disqualified for that, but he really ran well in that event. This 23 car has a lot of speed. They've ran really well in the higher speed tracks, and I think Tyler Reddick has a really, really good shot to compete for the win. Especially since Tyler Reddick won the NASCAR Xfinity Series race here in 2019, had to basically hold on for fuel, I think. Had to hold off hard chargers like Noah Gragson, who was about 2 seconds back. I had to hold those guys off for the victory. But I think Tyler Reddick has a really, really good shot of winning this race. We saw Austin Dillon compete really, really well at the Indianapolis Road Course, ran pretty well at Watkins Glen as well. And I think that this car has potential to finish in the top 10. We've seen this car run really, really well, especially how good Tyler Reddick was. He could be a sleeper pick this weekend if you're going to Xfinity Series to do picks. I think he definitely could be a sleeper pick coming in a weekend. Keep an eye on Tyler Reddick, and I think that he'll have a very good shot. I'm really happy to see that Tyler Reddick is going to be back in the NASCAR Xfinity Series as well. I think he's got a really good shot at being competitive, and I'm wishing Tyler Reddick the best luck this weekend here at Michigan. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about the Indianapolis Road Course TV ratings from this past weekend. According to a report that came out, it says that Sunday's Indy Road Course race earned a 1.80 rating and 2.83 million viewers on NBC. That is down 33% in viewership from the 2020 Brickyard 400. Now, those ratings are not really good, let's be honest. I do think there are a few things that do have an impact into why the ratings were not really good. One, the finish was moved to NBCSN. I think that's a big factor because a lot of people left the NBC coverage at the end to go watch NBCSN. And a lot of people, I think, also do the red flag as well, did have a major effect on the race. I think that 1 hour red flag that should have been really avoided because James Davis basically was dropping fluid and NASCAR to keep throwing caution after caution. It basically took an hour to go back green. And a lot of people are not going to stick around and wait an hour to go back racing. So I think that's a big reason why the ratings are right there. The second reason is I do think that them having that 2-week break a couple weeks ago, I think it's still having a major lingering effects on it because that 2-week break, I think NASCAR should not do that again. I think that's a major lingering effect right there. But I also think a lot of people got mad and frustrated at the situation with the curbing when the curb came up, and basically NASCAR's had a lot of problems here with the officiating. I think those are the major reasons. Again, the ratings are not that good, and as a matter of fact, it is the lowest rated race that's happened on national TV, lower even the Daytona 500 and a couple other races like the Daytona Road Course race. And it also had the lowest ratings for the Indianapolis race ever in NASCAR history. So it's really important to see the ratings about it. Those ratings are not really good, and NASCAR's got to turn it around again. And also, I do also think another big factor is this race was on the Indy Road Course. It was not on the regular Indianapolis racetrack. I think it was on the regular Indy racetrack. I still think the race would have drawn in pretty major viewership, 3 to 4 million viewers, but the fact it was on Indy Road Course, a lot of people always turn off, and also road course races also do not tend to do really well. So another big factor, I think, into why the Brickyard kind of struggled this year on the ratings is due to the fact that this race keeps getting moved around. After 2017, they moved into 2018, 2019 to September, and it really wasn't that good because really for attendance, and it really did not end up working really well in NASCAR's favor. And then lastly, they moved it to July 4th, which they ended up having really, really good ratings. We had IndyCar on that weekend as well, and also no fans were at that event, but you had really good ratings last year with 4.3 million viewers. This year, moving it to later in the year, which is where it usually traditionally used to be, I think them keep moving it, flip-flopping when exactly is another major factor to why the ratings are down. I think that's a major problem to the problems. So I think those are the big contributing factors to why the ratings were not really good this weekend. It's really important to see the ratings were down that bad, though. I think I would have honestly expecting about 3 to 3.2 or 3.3 million viewers, especially on NBC. The fact that we got under 3 million viewers on NBC is not really good. We've had races on cable this year that have gotten into the 3 million viewer range, so it's really important to see that the ratings were that bad this week, and hopefully starting next week in Michigan, we go back to NBCSM, hopefully the ratings will start trending in the right direction, but with the football season, NFL coming up, I think that we could have a major problem with that going forward. Hope things don't go trend in the wrong direction because we started off the year really, really bad. We were going up, and we've been going down, unfortunately, so it's really important to see that the ratings are down for this weekend. And now we're going to jump to the first of 3 major stories of today's episode, as we are talking about Carson Osbar. As Carson Osbar will be returning to the Denise Motorsports in the 2022 season, driving the number 42 for that organization. I'm not sure who the crew chief is going to be and sponsor going to be, but we believe that Phil Gold is going to be the crew chief for Carson Osbar. Carson Osbar absolutely deserves to come back to Nice Motorsports. I'm really, really happy to see this because Carson Osbar this year in 2021 has been absolutely impressive this year. I thought that Carson Osbar was a really, really talented driver coming up through the ranks. I did not realize that Carson Osbar is a driver that deserves to be in this series. He's done absolutely incredible. Compared to his teammates that have driven in Nice Motorsports this year, drivers like Ryan Truex, drivers like Wallace have driven for the team in the past. This driver has done absolutely incredible. He made the playoffs, the only driver to make it for Nice Motorsports this year. He's has, I think, a couple runner-up finishes this year, almost won at Charlotte, almost won a couple races earlier this year, has led in 4 of the 15 races that have taken place in the NASCAR Truck Series here, has finished in 13 out of the 16 races. He's only finished outside the top, I think, 16 in 3 of those races. He's been extremely consistent throughout this year, and definitely a sleeper for the NASCAR playoffs as well. And a driver that I think will make it to the Cup Series one day. You never know. If he gets a really good opportunity going forward, he could have a shot to win a championship. But I'm really excited to see that Carson Osbar is coming back here. Now, what are my expectations for next year going into 2022, even with this year? I think Carson Osbar next year has a really strong opportunity to win a couple races. I think especially with the field maybe winning a little bit next year, I think that we are going to see Carson Osbar win a couple, 1 or maybe even 2 races next year. I know the Nice Motorsports equipment is not that great, but I think the longer that Carson is in this year, especially with practice qualifying coming back next year, I think that we are going to see this 42 team really, really put a lot together. I think that he has a really strong opportunity to contend, and I think it'll be really cool to see Carson Osbar back next year. Again, I'm really excited to see these coming back full-time with the team next year. I think it really teed this team to the next chapter for their future, and I think that this will lead him to potential Xfinity Series. Again, I wish he was maybe going up to Xfinity, but I think it's really, really cool to see that Carson Osbar is going to be back in the NASCAR Truck Series full-time in the 2022 season. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the rumors in regards to 2311 Racing and from Row Motorsports and more indefinite. Yesterday we talked about on the channel how there is potential merge that is going to happen potentially with 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports. Denny Hamlin spoke to the media and he says there might be a deal going in the works. Now, yesterday on the Door Bumper Clear podcast, I think it was Freddie Kraft, if I'm not mistaken, said that apparently Bob Jenkins has been rumored to be wanting out of NASCAR for years. Now, I don't know how exactly true that is in regards to Bob Jenkins wanting out of NASCAR. Now, for a lot of people, it's the owner, not the TV reporter. It's basically the owner of the team, and apparently it's been rumored for a while that he wants out of NASCAR. That is really interesting to me, but if you're going to want to get honestly out of the sport, I think this is the time to do it, especially how much money's coming in, and with 2311 wanting to expand, it really does not surprise me one bit if this does end up coming true, if they do end up expanding, and they end up, of course, acquiring up both of the teams. Here's what I do think, first of all, that is going to happen, I think most realistically. I do think that 2311, they're going to end up basically buying up one of the charters or leasing one of the charters, and I think Front Row is at least going to keep one of their charters. So I do think that 2311 is going to expand to a 2-car team. That brings into question, first of all, who's going to get the second right for 2311 Racing if they are to partner up with Front Row? I think that it will go to Kurt Busch. It's been rumored for a long time that Kurt Busch is the most likely to go to 2311 Racing. The reason he's been the most likely is, one, Kurt Busch, the ride that he drove for Chip Ganassi Racing, they got bought up by Trackhouse, and next year Trackhouse is going to have Daniel Suarez and Ross Chastain in the organization. Next year, Kurt Busch has been wanting a deal done for a very, very long time. As a matter of fact, he reported to me a couple weeks ago that he wanted a deal done by his birthday about 13 days ago, and now we have this basically getting firm that there's talks about that. Now, there is also potential we could see Rick Webb Racing buy that up, but I think it'll be Kurt Busch, and I think, like I said, I think Kurt Busch will be a major, major factor. One, he's a championship caliber driver. Kurt Busch is the guy that's won a championship back in 2004 for the organization. You know, he's won races for every organization he's driven. Even Phoenix Racing was really, really competitive. Furniture Racing was able to go out there and contend and make the playoffs and make that team really, really competitive. Before Mark Truex Jr. came to that team, it was Kurt Busch who really made that team extremely competitive. And, of course, driver for Suarez Racing won 4 or 5 races with that team. And with the Chip Ganassi Racing, he scored 3 wins at a team. 2019 at Kentucky. 2020, he's able to score the victory at Las Vegas in a crazy fashion. And in 2021, he's able to win in dominant fashion a couple weeks ago at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Also, I think he's going to be a good mentor for Bubba Wallace. I think he will bring a lot in eyes to Bubba Wallace, help Bubba Wallace become a much better driver, and also brings that sponsorship of Monster Energy. So I think if they are able to do this, I think it will be. If this does end up happening, what happens to Front Row Motorsports? I think that the driver that unfortunately loses their ride is Anthony Alfredo. I think more likely Michael McDowell will end up back at Front Row Motorsports this year. I think they're going to keep the 34 charter, and I think that they are going to get rid of the 38 charter. I think the 38 charter is going to go, like I said, will go to 2311, and I think Anthony Alfredo will be out. I know that Front Row has talked about status quo when it comes to their drivers, but let's be for Anthony Alfredo, while I think that he has kind of at points had good moments, he's kind of struggled at points this year as well. And if you're going to choose a driver between Kurt Busch and Anthony Alfredo, I think that you're going to choose them. The other big question if this merge happens, does Front Row remain a Ford organization or do they go over to Toyota? I think, in my opinion, I think that they are going to go over to Toyota. I don't know if they've had Toyota backing in the past. I know they've worked with Chevy in the past, but they've been Ford for a very, very long time. So I believe this will be the first time they work with Toyota. And I would mean probably that their truck series program, and because there's been tons of talk, maybe go to Xfinity as well, their truck program will probably switch over to Toyota as well. Nothing is confirmed at this moment, but there's talk about that. And the fact that Bob Jenkins may sell the team, among other things, is definitely really, really interesting. And the silly season's definitely picking up behind the scenes, and we may know things about what's going on forward really, really soon. And now we're going to jump on to the final major story of today's episode, as we are talking about Denny Hamlin versus Chase Briscoe. Now, to give a backstory before we jump into the tweets that happened last night, on the last couple laps of the race going into the final restart after all the pandemonium due to the curve situation basically happened, on the last restart, A.J. Allmendinger got into the back of Chase Briscoe. Denny Hamlin did not force him wide. Chase Briscoe goes into the grass. Going into the corner, they are side by side. Now, Denny Hamlin and Chase Briscoe are basically side by side, and then Chase Briscoe gets told that he has a stop-and-go penalty. But apparently it had not been officially communicated to Chase Briscoe as he got into the back of Denny Hamlin and intentionally, well, I don't know if it was maliciously took him out, but he got into the back of Denny Hamlin and basically spun him out for basically the win at the time. Then Chase Briscoe drove going into the final corners. I think his brakes were messed up, and A.J. Allmendinger was able to take the lead and hold off Ryan Blaney and Kyle Larson for the victory. Denny Hamlin was not extremely happy. He would talk to Chase Briscoe. Chase Briscoe says, like I said, that he did not know that the penalty had taken at that point. Last night on Twitter, when the NASCAR Radioactive came out on Fox, Denny said that Chase acknowledged the incident that took place, and Denny Hamlin was not very happy on Twitter. Then Chase Briscoe came on Twitter a little bit later and responded to Denny Hamlin, and he says that it was his crew chief. He says he never uses copy. He uses 10-4. First of all, I appreciate Chase Briscoe, and then he also mentioned in it as well, they basically said, if you want to talk or text me, call me. Now, here's the thing about the situation with Chase Briscoe and Denny Hamlin. If you really want my 2 cents on the situation, I 100% believe that Chase Briscoe is at fault for the problems. Chase Briscoe Denny Hamlin literally did nothing wrong. I saw a lot of Denny Hamlin haters that are basically putting the blame on Denny Hamlin for that. But let's be for real. Denny Hamlin never gave content. And Chase really wanted to be mad at somebody, he should have been mad at A.J. Allmendinger, who ended up winning the race because A.J. kind of pushed Chase Briscoe off the track. But when you dump somebody, it's really, really frustrating to see it. In my opinion, like I said, I think Chase Briscoe is overall at fault. Not only that, he cost Denny Hamlin a shot to take over the regular season points lead and lock himself up in with a victory. He could have locked himself in on points, but instead now, he's probably not going to win the regular season championship. He's 23 or 24 points back of the regular season championship, so he's probably out of that hunt to get that at the moment. So I understand Denny Hamlin being a little bit frustrated and upset. And again, Chase Briscoe responding on Twitter is definitely really interesting too, because, I think the fact that both of these guys, they have a good relationship with each other, the fact that they're not getting along is really, really frustrating. Hopefully things between these two overall do get sorted out going forward, so we can see these two go out on the racetrack and see things going forward. Because like I said, if you want my 2 cents in my opinion, I think Chase Briscoe is absolutely at fault. And like I said, people should not be blaming Denny Hamlin for the wreck at all. And I understand Denny Hamlin fans being frustrated because your guy's had a frustrating year. He's been close to winning these races this year. And unfortunately, it got really, really affected. So it definitely was really, really unfortunate to see the situation. Hopefully these two can sort this stuff up going forward and we can see things go forward in the next direction. So, anyway, that's for today's NASCAR news video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe to the channel, turn channels to notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Support page on the list description below for that, and comment your thoughts on today's video. Who do you think is in the right? Do you think Chase Briscoe is absolutely in the wrong, or do you think Denny Hamlin is acting a little bit childish? Let me know in the comments below. And do you think that this merger between Front Row and 2311 is going to happen? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great and awesome NASCAR content. Take care, everybody.